Tremble For Me, written by Capture21, Chapter 1. Unexpected Change of Mission Parameters. High school. It was a place loathed by most filthy humans that went through the 3 years of educational torture. Zim was not a human, but he too loathed the establishment that had, in some respects, kept him imprisoned in the same manner. Sure, he easily could have skipped all the classes, or taken in the robo-parents and said that he was transferring. He could have even moved and pretended he was older in his current Earth alias. His height was no longer the primary factor for age determination like he was when he first arrived. After a few years on Earth, Zim found himself growing, and naturally he assumed it was a reward from the tallest for doing such a good job. Operation Impending Doom had been declared a success even though his mission remained incomplete. The tallest were not interested in the time frame so much as having an agent on Earth who should the local populace become a nuisance to the Urkan Empire. Zim could have moved and changed his identity at any time, but his Earth life had gotten comfortably familiar, and even high school was not enough of a deterrent. Today, however, Zim need not worry about overbearing teachers or ridiculous exams. He had already graduated, and was merely here on business with one of the students. It was child's play to tap into the intercom system and deliver his summons. "Gaz! Whatever your name is, please report to the front of the school. That is all." The purple-haired teen groaned at the sound of the alien's voice. She had hoped that she'd never have to hear that voice again when her brother headed for college. It had been stupid to simply assume that Zim would do the same. Thankfully, Zim had stayed quiet once Dib was out of the way. What he was doing here now, bothering her, Gaz didn't really care. He wasn't worth the bother, but the expectant eyes of her classmates forced her to leave her seat and address the issue. Gaz made her way through the school, opening doors with kicks to relieve her pent-up anger, until she got into the main doors and laid eyes on the green-eyed menace. "What do you want, Zim?" she asked menacingly. "I have important matters to discuss with you, girl child." "I'm not a child," Gaz glared, and repeated her question earlier. "What do you want, Zim?" "It cannot be discussed here," Zim sneered at the high school students that loitered everywhere despite the classes being in session. "I expect you to feel some relief in the excuse of skipping classes." Gaz considered this for a moment before heading down the steps. "If you're planning on wasting my time, I'll make you wish you were never incubated," she hissed, dangerously, making her threat personal despite the audience. "Excellent. Come, Gaz human!" The alien marched away proudly, with a final groan, Gaz shuffled after him, lazily dragging her feet. "Where are we going?" Gaz asked as they walked by. It had to be nearby, where Zim would have been using his ship. The customized crossbreed of Earth cars and Urkan space vehicles was one of the alien's better creations. "Gaz, do you recollect on how long we've been on speaking terms?" Gaz wasn't really on speaking terms with anyone, but she knew that what the alien boy was talking about. After Zim had been on Earth for a couple of years, the underground classes at school were integrated into the lunch hour. Seating had been limited, and what had been 4 tables and less desirable contacts had become 1. Zim and Dib had been forced by social pressures to occupy the same table, along with a half a dozen others. Gaz made the mistake of continuing to sit with them. 7 years. Now answer the question, Zim. "The base," Zim replied briskly. "During the 7 years, have I ever overstepped my boundaries in inappropriate interaction? Let's see, you yelled profanities at my lunch, you frequently threatened me or Dib, you've stolen a notebook, 15 erasers, 2 pencils, and 3 tubes of lipstick from me. You've kidnapped my class for one of your experiments, you've probably had spy cameras following me around the entire time, but most importantly, you overwrote my save data for Monster Crusher. So yeah, not appropriate." Well, now that Dib has left in search for higher education, Zim has realized that social interaction with you also has their time limits. "What's your point, Zim?" Gaz asked, as they reached the block where Zim's so-called house had been stationed ever since his arrival on Earth. Now Zim remained silent, except for a voice commanding to deactivate the lawn gnomes as she stepped through the gate. He even held the door open for Gaz as she stepped inside. Once she was in the middle of the room, she whirled back with a glare, wondering what he was playing at. My point. Zim didn't look at her. He looked at the door and momentarily composed himself. During that time, I saw you tremble once, from a temperature uncomfortable for human bodies. You were the one out in the snow trying to blow up the science lab. Gaz turned her face away, glaring at the couch instead. There were some things she didn't want to remind of, like the warmth of Zim's jacket around her shoulders. Yeah. He had even found her shivering to be a distraction of his maniacal expositions. At that time, Zim realized a desire that has been left unaddressed. Gaz felt a hint of warmth traveling around her cheeks, silently cursing herself. The combination of memory and phrasing was not doing wonders for her composure. I want to see you tremble. Zim turned towards her with intensity in his eyes that caught Gaz off guard. Pulling out of his contacts with one sweeping motion that he took from a determined step towards the girl. Part of me sees you as my enemy. His proximity was clearly uncomfortable as Gaz backed away from him. He discharged his wig, capable of with taking another step closer. At my core, I must subjugate my enemies. I cannot fight the need to have you tremble at my feet. Gaz seemed intimidated. Zim backed her into the wall, and he now thrust his arms against the wall on either side of her to prevent her from escaping. He had been planning this for a month, and Gaz would probably subject to his extreme pain afterwards. He had to move fast. He had to make her tremble once more, unless her violent usual streak for behaving like an idiot. Part of me wants to kill you, he said darkly, and it happened. Gaz trembled, just slightly. Victory for Zim! The aliens shouted, proud of his accomplishments as he thrust his arms into the air. I wasn't trembling in fear, you idiot, Gaz yelled back, her face getting redder. What? His antenna dropped. You're lying! Oh, how I wish I was. The temperature is appropriate for human bodies. What else could make you tremble? Earth's parasites in your belly? Gaz bit her lip, and Zim's eyes widened. Suddenly, the Urkin bent down and pulled Gaz's shirt away from her stomach, making her tremble again. You're not allowed to have some filthy earth parasite in your stomach, he yelled, until Gaz's hand pushed him away by his forehead. I don't have parasites, Gaz snapped back. I'm not cold, and I'm not afraid. I was turned on. Gaz was now quite red. Zim assumed fury. Gaz knew embarrassment. Turned on? Zim questioned, letting his arms flop to his side. Humans have an on switch? No, it's just a figure of speech. You trembled because of a figure of speech? No! Gaz looked at the big red eyes that looked at her insidiously. Turned on is a metaphor for sexual arousal. Zim blinked, trying to comprehend the situation, trying to apply his independent research for 3 years of sex ed into a past minute. I should go, Gaz began sneaking away. Then Zim grabbed her arm. You have had many Earth boyfriends. Only 2, Gaz replied, not trying to be insulted by Zim's exaggeration. Were either of them capable of making you tremble? No. Gaz looked at the alien, trying to figure out the alien's next straight through the pattern. So, Zim is superior in this area. Gaz looked up at Gaz hopefully. Sure, Gaz said flatly, letting the green boy have his ego boost. Victory for Zim! He shouted, waving his arms in the air, as Gaz shook her head and moved for the front door. Suddenly, the alien was in front of her, blocking the door. I want to make you tremble again. What? Gaz was now glaring now. I want... Zim stepped forward. To make you. He was dangerously close again, but this time Gaz wasn't backing away. Tremble for me. Zim grabbed the belt loops on Gaz's pants and pulled her an extra inch towards him, crashing her folded arms against his chest. I want you to do what your pitiful boyfriends could not, he said darkly. You, Gaz swallowed the words, have no idea what you're asking, Zim. Zim is asking you to turn your back on your species, deny your biological inclinations to produce offspring, and give an alien who may one day decide to take over your entire species the right to pleasure your body with or without the titles of your humans that give you that position. Gaz blushed harder. If that were a possibility, staring wide-eyed at the alien, on second thought, perhaps she had been the one who didn't realize what he was asking. For a moment, the tight fold around her arms loosened, and Zim's face melted into a self-pleased grin. Glare hardening, Gaz pushed the alien boy away. "Back off, Zim. You just think you can get whatever you want and without any work." Gaz promptly headed for the door while Zim blinked helplessly. It was mere seconds of information, but Zim processed it frantically. Gaz hadn't said no. Her words were a test of declaration to the Endeavor. Zim ran through what he knew of human standards and protocols. Usually before entering into a reproductive relationship, humans interacted more regular in social settings to determine the quality of a potential mate. Zim was familiar with being tested. Saturday, Zim called as Gaz had just stepped past his fence. "Can I see you Saturday?" "Why would I want to see you?" Gaz asked menacingly, but she hadn't stopped moving. "A movie. Zim shall pay." "What movie?" Zombie Apocalypse 16, Zim answered hurriedly. Gaz paused. "I like night showings," she answered, soft and quiet, then harshly, "Don't screw it up." Zim's eyes widened in realization that Gaz proceeded as she walked out of his neighborhood. He had a date with the Dib's scary sister.